Hello, Spirit House here. Um, I'm reading today from The Secret of Light by Walter Russell, and it's chapter 7 Knowledge versus Thinking. Man's knowledge is his power. His thinking is the expression of that power. The expression of power is not power. Therefore, thinking is not power. As man gradually becomes aware of his omniscience, his thinking intensifies in voltage in proportion to the increase in awareness of his omniscience. Thinking is an electric wave extension from the centering fulcrum of knowledge, which seemingly divides knowledge into ideas and sets those ideas in motion to create forms of ideas as product of knowledge. Man's knowledge is like a deep well of still water. His thinking is like a two-way pump which divides the quality of that stillness into quantities of parts and sets them flowing. That is what the objective universe is. Quantities of many seemingly separate forms of idea, all of which are but parts of the one whole idea. Each seemingly separate part is a dynamic extension of the one static unity. But separateness only seems, for all are indissolubly bound together in light as one part. Knowledge is the foundation of man's concepts. Thinking transfers concepts into product. The quality of man's product depends upon the degree of awareness of his knowledge, and not upon the quality, quantity, or intensity of his thinking. Water cannot be drawn from an empty well, nor can clear water be drawn from a muddied well. Likewise, good product cannot come from intensive thinking unless knowledge backs that thinking. No idea of mind can ever become matter. Idea of product can never become product. Moreover, no expression of anything in nature is the idea which it expresses. The product of idea is not the idea it simulates. Idea is cosmic and cannot be produced in matter. Idea must be conceived in the mind before it can be simulated as product. Conceptions being solely... let me start that sentence over. Conceptions belong solely to the magnetic God light and never become matter. A lever, for example, moving upon its fulcrum, expresses the idea of power by motion, but the idea of power is still in the fulcrum source of power. It is not in the moving lever. The lever would be both powerless and motionless if it did not have the stillness of the fulcrum from which to extend the simulation of power. A watch expresses the idea of time, but the watch is not time. Likewise, it expresses the idea of mechanical principles, but the watch is not the idea which is expressed by those mechanical principles. The printed poem is not the idea expressed in the poem. That printed poem has no meaning to anyone whose intelligence is insufficient to reflect the idea from the composer's mind to his own. No idea of mind ever becomes matter. Likewise, neither the musical composition on the printed page nor the art of music which issues its sounds from musical instruments is the inspired idea of the musician. Inspiration can never be produced. It can be but reflected from one inspired mind to another recognizing one. Idea and inspiration may be echoed from spirit to spirit, but they can never become product of matter in motion. And a caption from the Divine Iliad. Man's sense-seeing with his eyes binds him to the illusion of my dual thinking, for I build illusion with my dual thinking for his sense-seeing. Sense-seeing binds man to forms and things, while mind-knowing opens doors of glory to the opposed threads of light which I weave all idea of mind into forms of many moving things. Mind-seeing disintegrates unto the farthest reaches of my universe of me, and sees all forms as one. With his seeing eyes, man sees light as matter energized, but senses not that the energy of matter is the light of my divided thinking. With man's unseeing eyes of spirit, he knows the light of me, the source, and knows that he is bound in me as one, and I in him. Behold in me thy God of love, the one inseparable. From the Divine Iliad. Chapter 8. Thinking versus Sensing. Man is still in primate, with very few exceptions. He has not yet learned to think powerfully from knowledge. He is just beginning to think as an extension of knowledge. We sense electrically and mistake that electrical sensing of observed effects for thinking. Sensing is not thinking. Sensation is but an electrical awareness of wave motion by other waves. We mistake the electrical records of the information which our brains have recorded as sensation for thinking and for knowledge. Information thus acquired by the senses is not knowledge, however. A man may have vast information and skill, but have very little knowledge. The greatest scientists of today, for example, are well informed. They know how to do wonderful things, but do they know the why of what they do? Information from observed effects and skills in putting those effects together for useful purposes have multiplied vastly since man first observed natural phenomena. His sense of observation told him how to make a boat, then a sail for the boat. He then discovered the wheel and fire. Electrical awareness of effects of motion, plus memory, plus the power to reason objectively, gave him the ability to do this. Very little of it has been due to either thinking or knowledge. We thus confuse sensing for thinking and knowing, when factually we have been but functioning through sensed electrical awareness acquired from information. The quote-unquote information thus conveyed is electrical, not mental. The telegraph message which goes over any wire is not the thought conveyed by that message. Even the typed telegram is not the thought conveyed by it. Its symbols inform the thinker of the thought conveyed by it, but it is not the thought. Thus, it is that our vast mechanistic, electrically motivated universe is intersensitized for the purpose of informing every nerve ganglion in every cell of every organic and inorganic part of it of the condition of every other part of it. Our supposedly five senses. Supposedly. And that was me. Our supposedly five senses. And speaking of an electrical awareness, which we call sensation, we think of our senses as five in number. These are the senses of seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and feeling. All of these five senses are but the one sense of feeling. We do not have five senses. Seeing is a sensation of feeling light waves through our eyes. Hearing is a sensation of feeling light waves through our ears. Tasting and smelling are a sensation of feeling light waves reacting upon mouth and nostril. All variation in sense of feeling is due to a difference of electrical conditioning in pulsing wave matter. If pulsing wave matter is but an electrical wave record of thought, sensation likewise is but an electrical wave matter record of thought. Neither of them have reality. Neither of them are the thought they record. It also follows that if matter, motion, and substance are electric records of thought, then sensation has no reality, for sensation is but an electrical awareness of wave motion by other waves. It likewise follows that if matter, motion, and substance are electrical wave recordings of thought, then electricity, which records thought, and thought itself are non-existent. There is but one thing in this universe, and that's light. Light, the still light of all knowing, the one light which is God. God alone lives. His thinking and imagining is knowing. The knowing universe is all that is. Knowing mind is still. There is no activity whatsoever in the universe of either spirit or matter. Empirical knowledge. Man's present civilization is erected upon the foundation of empirical knowledge obtained through his senses. What is empirical knowledge? The definition is in the dictionary is conclusions founded upon experiment and observation alone. In other words, the so-called knowledge upon which man relies is founded upon the evidence of his senses, or more simply, upon the non-existent waves of motion of a non-existent substance. The fact that the answer as to why mankind has, as yet, practically no knowledge. During his amoeba and jungle days, he lived a purely sensed existence. His body cells were controlled entirely by instinctive flux threads of light extended to him directly from the Creator. Man is still new. Out of millions of such years, he has had but a few thousand years since the dawn of consciousness awakened in him the slightest suspicion of his spiritual inheritance. The advance of man since the first messengers of God appeared on earth to kindle an awakened spark in him has been based upon information gained by his senses and stored in his electric brain as memory records of sensed observations. These observations he has reasoned into sense conclusions by an electrically sensitized brain. All of such conclusions, which are based upon the evidence of senses, have within them the elements of deception, which characterize all effects of motion in this three-dimensional universe of illusion. Man is aware of some of these illusions, such as those of perspective. He is aware of the fact that railroad tracks do not meet upon the horizon, but he is not aware of the fact that all effects of motion are not what they seem to be. He is thus misled into forming conclusions which have no relation to nature whatsoever. One can have no knowledge of effect, for all knowledge lies in cause. Our new fundamental laws and principles must be based upon knowledge of cause. Laws based upon illusion. Newton, for example, confessedly did not know what gravitation was, yet wrote laws concerning it based upon his observation as to what gravitation did to an apple. Also, he concluded that the moon would fall upon the earth if it were not for its motion. He even proved this mathematically, not being aware of the fact that those same mathematical formulae which he would apply to every satellite, planet, and star in the heavens, as well as to every electron in every atom, none of which are falling into their primaries. Observers in natural phenomena are still calculating the age of the universe and weight of the earth. The universe is ageless. It has no beginning. Likewise, the earth has no weight in respect to anything else in the universe. Every orb in the heavens is in perfect balance with every other orb. Messengers of the light. Messengers of the light. What little knowledge man has acquired during these last few thousand years has been given to him by the very few geniuses, prophets, mystics, and other messengers of the light who have come to re-inspire mankind with their inspired knowledge. From these rare few, the beginnings of our culture have sprung. Without them, there would be no understanding of beauty in the world. Without beauty, man would still be barbarian. Through beauty alone will he gradually become consciously aware of his oneness with the light. When man knows the light, he will know all things. Today, that light is so dim in all mankind that no one has yet fathomed the secret of light, or of gravitation, radiation, electricity, growth, life, reincarnation, or the wave. The day has now dawned when he will know these things. This is man's inheritance for the new age. And it ends with another caption from the Divine Iliad, this chapter. Behold in me the one light from which a seeming two lights appear as pairs of rhythmically interchanging opposites. These are my light messengers. They are my workers, which build my imagined forms and give them back to me devoid of form. They are the pulsing heartbeat of my body, the makers of forever boarding cycles of my imagining in forms of things. The two are equal halves of one. They never can become one. They forever interchange to simulate a balanced unity, which they never find, for they never can be aught but two. From me one light extendeth to give form to my imaginings, and give them pulse beat to simulate eternal life in them, which is in me. The other light dissolveth that form, and giveth it back to me unquickened for resurrection in my rest to repeat my imaginings. Say thou therefore that life is eternal in man through eternities of resurrections of him in me. And say thou also that his resurrection is his own, for he is one with me. Thus is my imagined dual light universe born, dissolved and reborn, concentrated, decentrated, and reconcentrated, integrated, disintegrated, and reintegrated forever and forever in my imagined universe of imagined time and space. And behold, each of my pairs of opposite expressions of me are reborn through me as the other one. Again I say, there is naught but rebirth in me, there is no death. Go thou and tell to man that both life and death are but mirrors of each other, which becometh each other, and their forever interpassing through each other to their still fulcrum in my knowing, from which both sprang into seeming being to record the imaged forms of my thinking. From the Divine Iliad.